Welcome back to another episode of Building the Board presented by Hyper Ice. I'm Britt Johnson, and we are talking wide receivers today. Just a year ago, though, the Dallas Cowboys had one of the arguably best wide receiver cores in the NFL, but during this offseason, we lost Amari Cooper to a trade. We lost Cedrick Wilson to the Miami Dolphins, and we also gained James Washington in free agency. I'm going to bring in Kyle Yeomans because we got a lot to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
Tons of things going on. There are a ton of amazing wide receivers. Can you tell me about some of your favorites?
Yeah, this is a loaded wide receiver class. Again, I feel like every year we get to this series and we start talking about all these names at the top of the draft. Just 2 years ago, it was CeeDee Lamb that was up there as well. But there's really 5 guys that stick out, 6 depending on who you talk to, but it starts at the top with a guy like Drake London, who's a go-up-and-get-it sort of receiver. Chris Olavey, a very shifty slot guy who's going to have some after-the-catch sort of ability. So is his Ohio State teammate Garrett Wilson. Treylin Burke, who David Hellman's going to get a chance to talk about in a little bit, and then Jamison Williams, who was injured in the college football championship game. He was an Alabama product who was certainly electric in his own right. So plenty of options and different ice cream flavors, as we like to call it, with this wide receiver class.
Well, my favorite flavor is Ohio State Buckeye flavor.
Ooh.
I am an Ohio State fan, so I think it's interesting with their 2 receivers, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olavey, because same height, relatively same weight. They ran almost close to an exact same 40 time. Tell me about the biggest differences if, you know, they're both on the board at 24. We pick a wide receiver at 24. Who are we going with? Like, what fits the Cowboys best?
I think it fits, first off, you're wearing your Ohio State red, so that fits this segment. Secondly, I would say both of those guys are very similar in their skill set, but you look at Chris Olave as more of a deep threat. He's a guy who's going to take the top off. He can go up and get the football, pinpoints the ball, and tracks it exceptionally well. He had multiple touchdowns of over 50 yards throughout his Ohio State career, and in an offense that featured some of the more lethal weapons in college football, he was really the go-to guy, whereas Garrett Wilson was a similar skill set, but a bit of a change-up. He was more of an underneath guy. Use him in the backfield, throw him in the screen game, and then allow him to run after the catch. He's a guy who is certainly going to go to open space.
Yep.
The yak yardage is going to build up with a guy like Garrett Wilson, and he's tough to bring down. It's almost like even though his size isn't there, it's still like he's bigger than the guy who's going up against it because he has a full head of steam and he is just so balanced all the way through while running with the football in his hands.
Well, another guy that the Cowboys would probably be really excited to get, Treylin Burke. Dave, you going to break it down for us?
I am going to break him down, Britt. And you know what? For all of the grief we give Jerry and Stephen Jones about their connections to Arkansas, they've only ever drafted one Arkansas player in their time running this team. That was Felix Jones way back in 08. I think Treylin Burke could buck that trend. And I think when we're done with this preview, I'll have all of y'all ready to call the Hogs as well. First of all, look at my guy's size here. I'll have you know, Cowboys picked 24th overall this year. Treylin Burke's size, the best comp I can come up with is none other than Dez Bryant, who was also picked 24th overall. I'm just saying, I think you're going to see some similarities when we get to the tape. Let's get to it. I'm going to start it off with the play against Ole Miss here. Here's my guy. He's hard to miss. I'm going to label him anyway. Again, at 6'2", 230, he tends to stand out. Not the best route runner in this class, but he's going to go and get the football. This is just a go. Big whoop, right? But the quarterback puts the ball up in the air. Not a great QB at Arkansas, by the way. Doesn't matter when you can do that. You think Dak Prescott might like to throw to a guy who can get anything within 5 yards of him? He's going to go big boy, whoever he's up against. Maybe the route tree is not insane, but that athletic ability certainly is. Speaking of athletic ability, I don't even need to label him here. He's going against Alabama. You see him. Take me through the play. Again, I'm not worried about so much of the route running, although I will admit, this is a pro's push-off right here. That is finesse. My man has got what it takes to get away with stuff in the NFL. Creates some separation, not the craziest route. Okay, slow it down just a little bit. This is boilerplate stuff, right? Like everybody gets away from the defense in college, except note these uniforms. This is Alabama. I hear people criticizing Treylin Burke's speed. If you can burn the Alabama defense deep, you've got more than enough speed to be a first-round pick for me. I'm not worried about it at all. Finishing this off, I would label him, but where is he? Where's Treylin? He's not even on the screen. Run it for me. He'll be there quick enough. jet sweep. You can do gadget stuff like this with Treylin Burke. He takes the ball, gone. Yeah, he doesn't even need to run routes. That's the type of fun stuff you'd like to see a receiver drafted in the first round do. Treylin Burke can go downfield. He can get away from defenses. You could give it to him in the backfield. You'll hear people compare him to Debo Samuel, and I get why. He can do some of that stuff. He's a do-everything type of player and a dynamic playmaker. If they pick him at 24, you should be very, very excited.
And for the most penalized team in the league last year, I like that he can get away with penalties. There you go.
Britt, that's a fantastic point. I love it.
I don't know if that's something that we should be looking at. We should just try to fix that
every little bit helps.
So,
every little bit helps.
And you were saying, Des Bryant, you took the words out of my mouth with Debo Samuel. He's kind of the new hip trend in the NFL, him and Cooper Kupp. This isn't Cooper Kupp. This is Debo Samuel when you're looking at him because of his ability in the backfield and then also just as a bigger body. He's so tough to bring down. He is a broken tackle machine weaving through a defense in the SEC, which, like Dave said a moment ago, if he can do it in the SEC, he can do it really against anybody.
Okay, so we gave up a first round to get Amari. Amari's gone. We got CD in the first round. Now, are we looking for a guy to be the number one, or is CD going to be the number one guy?
I think the expectation is to be the number one for CD Lamb. I think that's what you look at. When you drafted him at 17, you weren't expecting him to be a number two. This is his chance to be the number one for the future for this Cowboys team. But like you said, there's been a lot of investment in the wide receiver room over the last 3 seasons. Your 2019 first-round pick went to Amari Cooper. Your 2020 first-round pick went to CeeDee Lamb, and then you just signed Michael Gallup to a 5-year, $62.5 million deal. They have invested in the pass catcher spot. When is it get to being too much? That's the big question.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That's what they're going to have to figure out. Because as we're sitting here right now, it's receiver and offensive line.
Exactly.
But they've spent so many resources at receiver. Surely you can wait to the second, the third round. And Kyle, we love guys like maybe a George Pickens.
Yes.
I don't know if the Cowboys would draft an FCS player, but Christian Watson out of North Dakota State is one of my favorite players in this entire draft. Maybe they wait. Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. There are a lot of good receivers. Maybe it can wait. Offensive line, can it? And I think that is the big debate here is with so many other needs, do you really need to spend a 24th overall pick on receiver? Maybe not, but it would be really fun.
But there are still some options later on, day 2, 3.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Christian Watson. Not only could he be an option as a receiver, but as a return man as well, which could take the returning ability the responsibility out of CeeDee Lamb's hands to allow him to be that number one target and get a little bit of a rest on the sideline instead of having to be a return man.
You mentioned Jamison Williams at the top of the show. John Mechie, the other injured Alabama receiver, could probably get him later on. It's unfortunate that he's hurt, but maybe that plays to the Cowboys' benefit. Maybe you get him in the second or third round. I think there are a ton of ways you can go with this without using the first-round pick at receiver.
David Bell is a classic route runner who will probably be there in the second or third round, maybe
later.
Even in the fourth.
When you run a 4.7 40-yard dash.
Not a great 40, but he's a good technician route runner, and of course you're trying to replace Amari Cooper's route running ability. He's not an Amari Cooper replacement, don't get me wrong there, but he does run routes exceptionally well. You've got a speed guy like Wandel Robinson who could be really shifty and gadgety if you wanted in the later rounds. And then, you're looking at other guys along the way like Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. You mentioned John Mechie, Dontario Drummond, Tyquan Thornton, who's an absolute burner. He almost set the NFL Combine 40-yard dash record. There are so many different ways that they could go in the wide receiver class because it's exceptionally deep like it has been the last couple years.
Wide receivers are definitely always a fun position to keep an eye out for. Thank you guys so much for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next time on Building the Board. I'm Britt Johnson, Kyle Yeomans, Dave Hellman. See you soon.